Hi, this is Moby. Welcome to The Fire Show. My guest today, Thomas Umstattd, is a lot of things. He's an entrepreneur, as the CEO of AuthorMedia, which is a company helping authors get more sales with their books. He's a podcaster, the co-host of Novel Marketing Podcast, a podcast which, if you guessed it right, you're a genius, which actually dives deep into the art of promoting a novel. So if you plan to write a novel, if you're writing a novel and want to get more sales, reach out. He's also an author, having written and released Courtship in Crisis, a book about dating habits in the US. God, I need to read that book. He's also helping me edit and polish up my podcast. If you're a podcaster needing some production help, reach out to Thomas. But most importantly, he's a friend I met in Austin, and he's a friend whose opinion, expertise, and perspective on technology I really wanted to know. And this is what the episode is about. We talk tech, how it changed over the last 50 years, consumers' expectations before, present, and in the future. And lastly, what the future of media may look like. Small segue. I heard recently, and I believe this so much, which is every person is a media company. Boom, I'll let you think about that and get back to the episode. Thomas can be reached at Thomas Umstattd. That's THOMAS, Thomas. And UMSTATTD. UMSTATTD. That's also his website, www.thomasumstattd.com. As always, thank you for listening. If you like this episode, leave a review. I don't know, smile, enjoy your day, whatever. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Hi, this is Moby from The Fire Show, and I am at the Startup Studio in Galvanize, joined by Thomas Umstattd.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here, Moby.
How are you today?
I'm doing very well.
Yeah, we already talked about what you had for breakfast. Tell me something about your week. Something good about your week that happened.
So I'm about to head to Canada.
Ooh.
I'm going to be in a documentary about my book. So I'm excited about that. I'm going to get to explore beautiful British Columbia, which really earns its name. It really is as pretty as they say. So I don't know if it'll be pretty in October, November. So that'll be something
Canada
to see.
at that time, yeah.
It's going to be 40 degrees and raining while we're there.
Good luck, Thomas.
Yeah.
Tell me, what's the name of your book?
My book is Courtship in Crisis, a case for traditional dating. And it's about why the marriage rate in America has fallen. It used to be most people got married, and they got married pretty young. And now most people don't get married. And when they do get married, they get married very old. And it's about how and why that happened. And if you don't want that to happen to you and you want to get married, how to change that, at least as far as you're concerned.
Yeah, that's a big... I keep hearing in startup circles, entrepreneurship circles, know your market, know your problem. I like how your book addresses a problem. How did you even start thinking? When did the idea of this book come to your mind?
So I come from the homeschool community, which we thought of ourselves as very countercultural, and we kissed dating goodbye before anybody else did. And it turned out we weren't actually countercultural, we were super cultural. The rest of culture kissed dating goodbye as well. Now, what they called group dating, we called courtship. And so they were a little bit different. And the biggest difference is probably the sexual ethic was very different. But other than that, it was very similar. And I was a big advocate of courtship. I thought it was the cure for all of our problems, and the only problem is that it didn't work. So for a long time, I was running a website called practicalcourtship.com, and we were advocating for courtship, and I was trying to talk to people about it, and it was a very controversial website, very fun. And eventually,
I like how you said controversial and fun.
Oh yeah, just the definition of courtship is incredibly controversial. Anytime we'd use that word, there would be a huge flame war in the comments, being like, "That's not what it means to me," and like, "Your definition is flawed." But the problem is there was no one definition everyone agreed on, which was part of the problem. So what culture needs to encourage marriage is a set of social norms that everyone agrees on. Like, if I ask you out for coffee, that needs to mean something, the same thing to me that it means to you. And what happened in courtship is that since dating was taboo, everything had to be for the purpose of dating. So now when you ask somebody out for coffee, it's for the purpose of marriage. So you're like, "Hey, can I invite you out for coffee?" for the purpose of marriage. So now inviting someone to get coffee with you is the same as a wedding proposal. Then suddenly no one was getting coffee because who would want to get married to a complete stranger?
Yeah.
Might as well go all the way and get arranged marriage if you're going to do that. And so I wrote a blog post about basically coming out of the closet saying, I don't think courtship works. And it got 1 million page views in 3 weeks. It just went viral, spread all over the world. It had readers in China and Africa, every country but North Korea, actually, had page views.
What? That's crazy. What? I don't understand.
The Kim family, I don't think, are fans of any of the topics that I talk about on my blog. I tend to be pretty outspoken and not a fan of tyranny. And anyway, it really changed the conversation, and people started really questioning courtship. And a lot of people who used to be for courtship now have changed their minds and said, no, we don't think it works, or it doesn't work as well as we thought it did.
So, and I know we're going to jump into something different, but this is extremely fascinating. What do you think most people consider courtship, and why is that wrong?
So it's not that it's wrong, it's that it doesn't work very well. Courtship does work for about 10 to 15% of the people who try it. And typically how courtship works is if a young man is interested in a young woman, he first has a date or two with her father to get permission to pursue her. And then they start a relationship that's for the purpose of marriage. And the downside of that is that it's so intense at the beginning that anything that breaks up the courtship is incredibly painful emotionally. Often it takes years to recover from breaking up a courtship, because you don't break up a courtship, you call off a courtship. It's very much like an engagement. In many ways, it's like we're going to stop dating and just jump straight to the engagement phase. And in many ways, courtship is the same. It's like a pre-engagement, so to speak. And that level of awkwardness and that intensity makes it where most people don't survive. That makes the relationship itself more awkward, which makes it more likely to fail and less likely to start in the first place. And so what you have is in communities where courtship is really popular, you have lots and lots of young women waiting for some guy to pursue their father, which isn't going to happen. Young men mostly have left the community and they're pursuing women who don't believe in courtship. And the most passionate advocates of my book were women in their 30s being like, I've never been asked out on a date. I'm giving up hope that this courtship thing's not going to work. And I'm like, yeah, the courtship thing's not going to work. You need to try something different.
Wow. Tinder has ruined life, right? Okay. So that's a whole different discussion. Actually, I'd love to get into that. But before, you've mentioned a little bit about change, and we talked a little bit more about that, and you have that on your paper. The change in how we communicate. Now we have social media, email, before that was blogging, but fundamentally over the last 40, 50 years, we as a human species have completely changed how we communicate. If I want to tell my friend, hey, fuck you, I can text him. So going from the high level to the low, how over the last 10, 15 years, and we talked about this a little bit, has communication changed? And we'll go into all aspects over time.
Yes, I remember when I was a kid, I would get on AOL and occasionally I'd stumble upon somebody's website and they'd have articles there. I remember finding this one website. I don't remember what it was. I was 12 years old and I'm reading these like political articles. My mind is being blown by this like random guys on the internet's random political views. But I'm 12 years old. I don't know anything. So I think this guy is brilliant. And you know, what allowed this guy to have his own newspaper? Well, he knew how to do HTML. He got hosting somewhere. He's probably paying $20. And there wasn't a whole lot of that, right? Mostly it was people emailing, right? So in the early days of the internet, I'd put together an email and you have these epic forewords of Bill Clinton is ending the country and black helicopter conspiracy. Forward, reply, reply. And you're like, I don't know if this is true. And I have no idea of knowing who this came from. Because what would happen is these email forwards would evolve over, you know, as they would forward, they'd be like a virus that would like mutate different elements. And what eventually happened was you had blogs emerge in the early 2000s with platforms like Blogspot and Typepad and later WordPress, where suddenly it was somebody's name behind the post, and you would find that post either by searching for it on Google. But what started to emerge was this technology called RSS, which rest in peace RSS. I loved you as a technology. You were like my very favorite. Yes. And for those of you listening to this podcast, it is delivered to you via RSS, so it lives on in the podosphere. But it used to drive the blogosphere, which was a concept that we had, which was you could subscribe to a blog's RSS feed, and new posts would come to your Google Reader account. And individual bloggers could grow these huge followings of readers. And then a couple of things happened in quick succession that kind of brought that phase of the internet to an end, which is really sad because it was a very democratic era of the internet. And that was Google ended Google Reader, which was the most popular RSS subscription platform by far. And most people didn't move on to one of its competitors. So when they ended Google Reader, they more or less killed RSS for most people. So the technology still exists. You can still subscribe. Blogs still have RSS feeds, but that's not how people engage their blogs. What happened was everyone switched to following those bloggers on Twitter and on Facebook. So if I wanted to follow your blog early, I would have gotten on Google Reader and I would click that big orange icon with the swishes going up to the right. Remember? Yep. Those are all over the internet. Well, those are all gone now. And now I'd follow your Facebook and follow your Twitter, which was great. And the one benefit and what people liked about it was that if I liked your post, it was very easy to retweet it or to share it on Facebook. And so if you wrote a good post, it could spread very quickly. That's what happened to my post on Courtship, right? It had like 200,000 shares on Facebook, which is what caused it to spread. But then Facebook changed its algorithm and they want you to stay on Facebook seeing Facebook ads. And so now posts don't rise to the surface very much anymore. And people aren't that active on Twitter. Lots of people have accounts and lots of people post, but most everyone is talking and very few people are listening. And so that era of the internet has kind of come to an end. And now mostly discovery is done through sites like Reddit. There's nothing new about Reddit. We used to call Reddit Dig.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember Dig back in the day. Or Delicious, which was like a collection of the most boring things on the internet. It was like a save to read later. So you're like, oh, this is important, but kind of boring. So I'm going to save to read later. And you promise yourself.
I should read this sometime.
You never get around to reading it. But what's happened now is that content creators have all moved back towards email, and it's all about drip campaigns. And you sign up for somebody's email letter and you get really good content that comes to your inbox every day or every couple of days. That's a pre-scheduled set of emails. And what's fascinating is that we've come full circle back to how the internet was in the early days. So as RSS broke down and as social media broke down as effective tools of getting the word out, we've come back to email, which is kind of the original internet technology. A lot of people don't realize this, but email is actually older than the World Wide Web. We've had the email since early 80s, late 70s, and the World Wide Web we haven't had really since the early 90s.
And so let's break down you mentioned drip campaigns, right? So that comes towards the end of the funnel after I've gotten your email. But I would still argue that to get my email, you would have to advertise to me on social media, because that's where I am mostly.
Right.
What do you say about
the word
that?
you used. You used the word advertise. So it used to be back in the day, you could post fascinating, interesting things, and you get that attention for free if you were good at creating content. Now you got to pay to play, bro.
That's 100% right.
There's tons of people on Facebook, and you can still reach them, but you got to pay to reach them, and that's the big shift. And in comparison to paying for those ads, the cost of your email program is very cheap, whether you've got Drip or ActiveCampaign or MailChimp. Those are all pennies on the dollar compared to paying Facebook. Saying, Facebook, will you please share this post I made with my own fans?
Yeah, boost post, promote post.
Yeah.
I have a few pages and I get comments from Facebook saying, your post is performing 95% better than the rest of your posts. Please promote this. I'm like, shut up.
That boost post is the print money button for Facebook.
Oh,
it's worth probably
seriously.
$50 billion, $75 billion of their stock value. Because the real money in advertising is to get what's called non-sophisticated advertisers, people who aren't measuring to see if something was working or not, right? So sophisticated advertisers, Coca-Cola is never going to click boost post. If they do Facebook ads, they're using the Power Editor. But like Bubba's Tire Shop gets the thing, 95% better, this picture that I posted. I was like, oh, well, yeah, I'll pay $10. I'm not going to measure $10 very carefully to see if it gets me a return or not. And when you multiply all of the tire shop owners by all the times they give Facebook $10, suddenly you have hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue coming into Facebook. And as a sophisticated advertiser, you're bidding against those unsophisticated advertisers for the attention. And so the unsophisticated folks often are willing to pay more because they don't know if it's working or not. And it makes Facebook a difficult place to play. You can still advertise there. And if you do good targeting, you can still effectively acquire customers at a reasonable price. But it's a lot harder than it used to be.
Yes. And they're getting more expensive. If you're posting just text on your Facebook page, that's terrible. But videos, man, I truly believe how we consume information is going to be videos.
So video is very popular right now, and part of the reason it's popular is that EdgeRank, Facebook's secret algorithm, is really favoring video right now because they don't want YouTube to be king of video. They want to be king of video. So if you share a YouTube video on Facebook, no one will see it.
Yes.
But if you share a Facebook video, suddenly it's at the top of the stack, and that is very much on purpose. It won't always be that way. It used to be when Facebook was just entering mobile, if you posted the same post from your phone, more people would see it than if you posted it from your computer. Because they always have it boosting whatever's the new thing they're pushing. So right now, Facebook Live is the new thing they're pushing. A year from now, they'll be pushing something else. Probably, holographic 3D augmented
VR,
reality.
yes. Look at my Thanksgiving dinner through VR. Why do you think videos are going to go away?
I don't think they're going to go away, but I don't think they're going to be favored by the algorithm as much as they are right now.
Yeah.
So right now, it's almost like cheating. You still can get free attention with Facebook Live video, especially if your timing is correct and if you haven't done one in a while. Your first Facebook Live video gets a ton of attention. The more you do it, though, if you're doing Facebook Live every week, you don't get near as much attention on the subsequent videos. The EdgeRank won't put you at the top of the stack. And I know this because I had a radio show for a while, and we would do Facebook Live for our radio show. So we'd have a 2-hour Facebook Live every day. And people had to specifically, subscribe to be notified when it went live. Because after 2 or 3 of those, it wasn't new or special anymore. So once everyone is doing it, once Facebook's able to get everyone to go live, then it won't be an edge. So the key with Facebook marketing is you have to be a couple of steps ahead of the kind of mass
of the
users.
bell curve?
Right.
Exactly. And then when you lose that advantage, you go on to something else. It's a constant game of learn, adapt. Oh shit, it's not working. Learn.
And the key there is you have to be measuring the whole time. One of the ways you can tell a marketing bozo from a good marketer, a marketing bozo thinks they're a good marketer and they don't know what they don't know. So one of the big separations is that good marketers are constantly measuring. Just because something worked 2 years ago doesn't mean that it's working now. And for marketers, really, spreadsheets are a key tool. You've got to be looking at the numbers and comparing, and you need to know what your cost of customer acquisition is, to get into some jargon. You take the amount of money you spent on marketing in the last month, divide it by the number of new customers you got in the last month. That's your cost of customer acquisition.
That's important.
It's very important.
Yeah.
And then it's even more useful if you do that by channel, right? Yeah. So you take the money you spent on Facebook ads, and then you divide it by the number of new customers you got from Facebook. Mm-hmm. And you may find, wow, we're spending twice as much on customers on Facebook as we are customers on Google, or the other way around. We need to change where we're spending our money.
Exactly. There's a big misconception that's always been there, and it's going to be there, which is about marketing and promotion, which is, let's just put some money and promote. Marketing dollars are an investment, just like everything else. You pay someone $60,000 a year, you want something out of them. If you're just putting $60,000 worth of marketing spend, advertising spend, you're not getting a return. Man, we've got to do something about that.
I was working with a company, and we would do phone number tracking. So when a client came to us and they were advertising in 12 different magazines, and they were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on these magazine ads. And we were like, so what kind of performance are you getting? Like, well, we're getting a good number of customers. And we're like, which magazines are performing the best? They had no idea. So we redid their ads, and each magazine had a different phone number. And so then we were able to track which ads were getting calls. And it turns out 11 of the 12 magazines they're advertising in their industry, the only calls they were getting were from additional magazines in that industry wanting to sell them ads. And all of their sales were coming from just one of the magazines.
Wow.
And so with that knowledge, they cut their spending on 11 of the magazines. They were able to cut their total cost by, 60 or 70%. It was the more expensive magazine. It was the one they were advertising in. And they didn't cut their sales at all. So their cost of customer acquisition just dropped by half just by measuring in a more effective way.
It's really interesting. It's the whole concept of, when you're starting out, you're going to suck at something, whether that's advertising or creating content. And you start getting good at it and you get some attention. But after that base of getting good, you have to understand, I have 6 options of where to put my time, money, effort, which one is working for me. And you can't just go on a gut feeling, because we're wrong most of the time. Facebook views are 3 seconds. I can watch 10,000 videos a day for 3 seconds. That doesn't really mean anything.
That's right. And that's one of the ways that Facebook's kind of cheating in this whole video game, is that they count anything as a view. So the videos autoplay, and they count them as a view if you just
audio does not play it. Yes,
if you don't scroll past them fast enough.
Yeah.
And so a YouTube view and a Facebook view are not of equivalent value because it's a little bit harder for a YouTube view to count. Auto-played YouTube view. Right now I'm doing I just did an email campaign where people click on the picture of a video on the campaign. It takes them to a page where the video auto-plays. YouTube is not counting those auto-plays on a one-for-one basis because I know how many people clicked to the page and then I can see how many views. Not all the views are counting on YouTube. Wow. They have to watch for a certain period of time for YouTube to count it. Whereas if I were doing that on Facebook, I would have this huge number of a much bigger number of views.
Finally, I'm popular. Yes.
That's right. Whereas say a podcast download is even more valuable. It's harder to get somebody to download a podcast, but they're much more likely to finish that podcast, to go start to finish. So podcast consumption graph is, much higher engagement. And so when you're measuring, you have to make sure that you're actually measuring apples and apples, because it's very easy to be like, well, gosh, we're getting so many more views on Facebook. That must be where we should put all of our videos. And it's like, well, yeah, but what does a view really mean?
Yeah.
3 seconds is not going to...
Are people clicking on the link itself? Right. There's a difference between just PR and marketing. PR, 10 people know who you are, and that's great. For marketing, it's like one of them or two of them click through and actually become someone in your market.
That's right. And PR has shifted quite a bit. It used to be you faxed press releases to journalists, and if you had the right phone numbers for the right journalists, you could get on their stack. And if you had a PR agency that had good relationships with those journalists, that's how you would get into the news. Now the approach that works has shifted away from press releases to news releases, where you release it on your blog. So, we were talking earlier about RSS and how no one uses that. Well, the people who still use it are journalists. Back when I had my radio show, I was using Feedly, and I was following dozens and dozens of blogs looking for scoops. So I wasn't getting press releases. I was getting their RSS feeds. And for companies that are still like releasing press release PDFs the old way, you're missing out, because the journalists, the ones that have kept their jobs, they're on the new technology. They're not standing by their fax machine or waiting for an email with your press release in it. They're looking actively on their blogs. And I will say, as a blogger, I've had journalists on frequent occasions being like, hey, I'm working on a story. I saw you wrote a blog post on it. Can I quote you? And often on totally off the wall topics. And they're approaching me because they're on Google typing in, questions related to the story that they're making or they're writing.
Another tool is, what is it? HARC? Help a reporter out. Harrow.
Yeah, help a reporter out. That's another big website that you can use if you want to kind of be seen as an expert. There's a lot of new kind of PR techniques. Another is newsjacking.
Yeah, what is that?
So back when I had a radio show, there would be a hot story, right? And we may want to cover that story in day 2, right? So there's been some big shooting or some big weather event. So when Harvey came and hit Texas, that's a thing people are tuning into the radio to cover. So we had wall-to-wall Harvey coverage for days. And there's only so much like safety stuff I can say. And so I was desperate for any sort of twist on the Harvey story. And newsjacking is where you're like, journalists who are covering hot stories are looking for a follow-up story, and I could be that follow-up. So you take your topic and you connect it with Harvey. One way that this was done was companies like Tito's donated 2 trucks to carry relief supplies to Houston. That was the best money they ever spent. That cost them hardly anything. And they got so much coverage of like, Austin Disaster Relief Network is collecting materials to send to Harvey, and it's being taken to Houston by Tito's trucks. So that's one way to do it. Another is you connect it with your topic. So you're an insurance agent, right? You could very easily put out a blog post like, here are things to do in preparation for the hurricane so that you're best covered if your house gets destroyed. And suddenly you're the expert that's being, that me, the journalist, is desperate to talk to. I'm like, okay, what should you create a listing? Like, how do you keep track? Whatever it is. And whatever topic, you just find a way to connect it with the cutting edge news. Now, not every cutting edge topic is going to work for every company, right? Trump is half the headlines. And if you're trying to avoid Trump, that's half the headlines that you don't get to newsjack, so to speak. But if you have an edgier brand or you're willing to wade into those waters, there's lots of opportunities. And companies have very successfully newsjacked Trump. So Trump says something and some company will respond or some person will respond, and suddenly they're on all the TV shows.
I know. I've seen those articles. Someone tweets out a response to the president. Like, Why do I care? And why is this a story?
The press right now is desperate for anything relating to Trump. He's really driving headlines, which I believe is a way that Russia's actually hacking the election. So they have botnets, and any sort of topic that they like the news covering, they'll have botnets of fake visitors who will visit that page and drive up the analytics on that page. Like, oh my goodness, this story about such and such is super popular. We need to cover it more. And they're able to drive the news narrative by hacking the analytics.
Yeah, they're hacking away pretty much at what we think about. Before the internet, it was not everyone had a voice. There weren't distribution channels. And now that pretty much anyone can come up and say anything, that still means that systems or networks can find a way to, hey, still tell us what to think.
Yeah, there's nothing new about this. If you look at like military technology, it kind of ebbs and flows in that same way. So you'll have periods where it doesn't really matter how many troops you have, and because the like wealthy troops are going to be so much better than everyone else that they just kind of trump. So we had this with the age of knights, right? You have somebody who can afford to cover his horse in armor, and he's got metal plating everywhere. There's really nothing you can do to stop that guy, especially when he has like 99 of his 100 friends like charging at you at full speed. I don't care who you are. You are going to run away when that guy charges at you, and you could have the biggest army and you can't stop this guy. Whereas later on, when you had the musket, suddenly a new recruit holding a musket was almost as good as a veteran soldier with a musket. And this was Napoleon's great discovery. He's like, well, gosh, I'll just have 10 times more troops than everyone. I'll grab all the peasants, put a musket in their hands, and suddenly all these teeny tiny elite armies just get swept over, and he conquers all of Europe in a couple of years. and suddenly he forced all the other countries to change, and like, well, gosh, maybe we should give our peasants muskets too. And then, fast forward and you have World War I, where you have armies of 1 million people.
Yes.
And you'll have 100,000 casualties in one battle. And the same thing has happened with communication technology. So if we think of it as a war of ideas, right now, Twitter, social media, blogging, that's your musket, right? You as an individual have more or less the same technology that a, much wealthier, much more connected person. In the Revolutionary War, our troops had muskets. Their troops had muskets. The redcoats had the wealth of the British Empire behind them, and it gave them no technological advantage hardly at all. They had better cannons and they had more cannons. But when it came to the actual troops, the troops were the same. In fact, we were using this experimental technology out of Germany. We had these guns that would shoot 6 times slower than the British guns. But they had rifling down the barrels, and they could shoot farther and more accurately. And we adapted our technology, our approach to military, to use that new technology, where instead of standing in the middle of a field shooting at each other until one side broke and ran away, which was the way to win battles for like a long time, we were like, well, maybe we should hide behind boulders and have guns that shoot farther than the other guys, and maybe we should target their officers, which the British really did not like. It's like, no, you can kill our poor people. You do not kill our rich people.
Yes.
Suddenly, Parliament doesn't want to keep fighting the war when all their sons are the ones dying in the war. So we were able to make it painful to the right people making the decision.
So everything is basically a competition, and how we use technology. It's the same, even if you boil it down to, there's 5 companies, local companies in a small market, and each of them has a social media person, and now it's up to them. Okay, I want to post 10 times a day. Everyone does that, and then until one person finds out, hey, there's this thing called Hootsuite. And so they do that, and then they keep doing that, and then they say, okay, I can't schedule enough, or I'm tired of adding 100 things. Then they have something like Meet. Are you familiar with Meet Edgar?
I'm not.
But something like Meet Edgar comes away. It's basically, Meet Edgar is wonderful. It's expensive, but you can add in a library of content in different categories. You can choose what category of content goes on what channel at what time, and it automatically posts for you, randomly or not. So I can create a library of 2,000 things and say, hey, post 10 of them a week, and it'll just do it for me.
That's very nice. Of course, then it's important to measure to make sure you're actually getting clicks on that.
That's true. Otherwise, it becomes no one's looking at it.
Yeah, and that's often disheartening. The easiest way on Twitter to measure is to use Bitly. So you can add a plus sign to the end of any Bitly link, and it will tell you how many clicks that particular link has gotten.
A plus sign?
Yeah. So you just paste the Bitly link into your browser, and then you add the plus. So just shift equals, and it'll put the plus sign, and it'll bring up this analytics page, and it'll show you when it's that specific link has gotten tweets. And this even works for companies that license the Bitly software. So Kickstarter, for instance, licenses the Bitly software, and you can add the Bitly plus to any Kickstarter shortened URL, and you can see the analytics for that link as well. And it's often very disheartening because you're like, I have 20,000 followers. You tweet out a link and it has 3 clicks.
Oh,
you're
yeah.
like, what is my purpose here? Why am I spending all this
What
money
is my
on social
purpose?
media?
Yeah.
And the reality is that what people want on social media is they want to engage with real people. And the ability to automate has been one of the things I think that's really hurting Twitter, because so many people on Twitter are really just robots parroting using something like Edgar, Hootsuite, or Buffer.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's why, especially younger people who are able to tell, oh, this isn't live, this isn't real, are moving to platforms where you're not allowed to do that. So Instagram, Snapchat, the kids, like one of the marketers are often complaining, oh, it's so hard to talk to the kids because I can't, have a robot.
I can't hide behind something, yes.
Like, yeah, but the kids don't want that.
Yeah.
You start creating that robotic content, the kids are going to leave. They're going to go and find other social networks.
It's true, and there's this podcast, Everyone Hates Marketers. And it's true because marketers can ruin everything, which is I have an email inbox. Oh, yes, please, I'm going to subscribe to this. And then suddenly I wake up and it's 35 emails every single day. And then, okay, I go to Facebook and now I see this on Twitter all the time. I mean, I promote myself. I get it. And I hate myself for it sometimes, not always. But sometimes, like, I see these people, and it's constantly link, click, adding nothing to the conversation except maybe a bright colored photo with a quote and their name on it, showing me how smart they are. I'm like, wonderful. I still don't care.
Right. Which, if that is what you're promising with your Twitter account, right? So let's say you see yourself as a blogger, and the purpose of Twitter is just a way for people to subscribe to your blog. That's okay if that's the expectation. But if you're making this promise of, I'm going to interact with you on Twitter, and then it's all robotic, that's where the disjointed interaction comes. And I think the real power of social media is not you talking about you, it's other people talking about you, which means you have to live your life in such a way where you're worth talking about. There's no shortcut around that. You have to actually say something unique. And Donald Trump, love him or hate him, and most people hate him, but one thing you have to give him is that he's very good at Twitter. And what makes him good at Twitter is that he does it himself. You can tell the handful of tweets that aren't done by Donald Trump because they have like correct spelling and actual punctuation and words people have heard of. There's no like confefe, right? But he got all of Twitter talking about him for an entire evening when he posted his confefe tweet because only he would do that, right? If it had been his staff, they'd have had 5 or 6 different set of eyes on it, and that would have been typoed, proofread away. But the fact that it's him interacting directly with people on Twitter, people are longing for that real-time live feedback. And the fact that you never know if Donald Trump is going to retweet you. You could be some 16-year-old living in your parents' basement. Donald Trump might retweet you, right? That's true. It's like a lottery. You could have the president of the United States retweet your little tweet that you wrote from your iPhone one day. And it's one of the things that's making him so influential. And again, I get it. I don't agree with his policies either. So he did do something that I agreed with. I don't remember what it was at the moment, but occasionally I'm not like 100% against him. But as a marketer, I'm like, this guy's very good at what he does, and there are techniques and tactics that he uses that I think we could learn from.
Emotion, making sure that it's short, it's authentic, whatever that brand is. Yeah, and that's a problem that I guess we all have is when we get into something, we try to copy what's successful, and what is successful is usually what's popular, and after a while it just becomes the exact same. Twitter is a huge example of that. You're 100% right. So many just robots. For example, I see on my notifications, I saw this company start following me, and they liked or retweeted my stuff. I'm like, great, cool. And then I noticed they did it again. I'm like, oh wow. 2 weeks later, again, like consistently. 3 weeks later, I'm like, who is that? No one likes me this much. Who are these people? I looked, and I haven't looked at a profile in a long time. I don't actually need to look at a profile. I'm like, this is not real. Screw it. And that kind of interaction really takes away from, this is a place where I can talk to people, not be told how to follow my dreams, how to start a business. And look at me, I'm so wonderful.
That's right. Now, my wife actually uses Twitter, and she actually consumes content on Twitter. She has a very carefully curated feed of people who are interesting and funny to her. And, very often I'll see her and she's laughing at something. I'm like, oh, it's something I saw on Twitter. And she is able to find those diamonds in the rough. And there are people who are able to successfully engage with my wife. The thing, though, is that almost none of them are selling anything. So the people she's interacting with are, people who are posting fun cat photos or talking like they're a dog, right? There's this one Twitter account that we both relate called Thoughts of Dog. And it's just this guy like tweeting as if he is a dog. And there's another one that's like Thoughts of Bear or something like that. And all the tweets are like, I'm a bear. And that sort of thing. And like, you have to realize that Twitter and social networks in general, they're like a party, right? It's not work time. It's after work time. And when people are going to social media, it's not because they're wanting to work. It's that they're wanting to take a break from working. It's the cocktail party after work, which is different from email. Email is work time. And that's why it's so valuable as a marketer to talk to people in their inbox. Because people, when they're in their inbox, are used to taking action and buying things. And like email turns into work, right? You get emailed for work. You get emailed of like, oh, you need to go pay your bill of such and such. And that is a much better mental state to reach someone in.
Tell me more about how you were using email.
So my big project of 2017 is embracing marketing automation.
Sorry, did you just talk? Yeah.
Marketing automation. So, and specifically marketing automation in email. So while automation doesn't work very well in social media, it works very well, or it can work very well in email. So with a lot of the different email lists I manage, I've been setting up onboarding campaigns, and I have been really thrilled with the results. So I'm getting these onboarding campaigns with open rates like 60, 70%, which for email is really good.
Yes.
But you're getting people while they're warm, right? They've just opted into your list. And so during that first couple of weeks, you're hitting them with emails that are good emails. And the key with marketing in general, and this applies to email and applies to everything, is that you have to see marketing as a service. You have to see your job as a marketer of making people's lives better. Not by selling them a product that makes them their lives better, but the marketing itself needs to make their lives better. And if you're able to do that, where marketing is a service, people are going to want to be marketed to because your actual marketing is helpful to them. And this often means taking a kind of a more educational tone where you're helping to answer the questions that they're asking right now. And that's how you build that trust. They're like, well, gosh, you've helped me with all of these problems for free. Now I'll pay you to help me with more problems. And that approach works really well if you apply it to your marketing. So and specifically to your email marketing. So you're answering their questions, which means having a close interaction with your customers. So I recently kind of was restarting one of my companies, and I wanted to get reconnected with my customers. And so I emailed everyone who'd ever paid us money. So we have this invoicing service, FreshBooks, and I emailed everybody who'd ever sent us an invoice, and I offered them all a free consultation with me, which I don't know what I was thinking. It seemed kind of crazy, but I set Calendly up so they can pick a 15-minute time to talk to me. And it has been so educational for me to kind of be reminded the kinds of questions and challenges our clients are facing, because it's really easy to get the curse of knowledge where you spend so much time, in the jargon and in the industry that you forget that there are people who don't know what SEO means. So you're like, oh, we got to improve the SEO on your page and drive your conversion rates. And they're like, what are you even talking about? Yeah. And it's important as a marketer to stay close to your customers and stay close to your end users. And in a lot of large organizations, they do themselves a disservice when they have the marketing team and the sales team very separated. When I was back in agency world, I longed to talk to salespeople, but we were never allowed to talk to the salespeople. We only interacted with the marketing team, who themselves hardly ever interacted with the salespeople. And the marketing agency that worked with the team never talked to the salespeople. And so we were creating content and marketing copy and images for an end user we had never talked to, and we had never talked to anyone who'd ever talked to them. We were so separated. It really made marketing to them effectively really hard. And so now that I'm back kind of running my own game, I'm like, I want to talk to my own customers. And some of these folks I'd never talked to before, they'd only talk to my team. And I found it so useful to get on the phone with them for 15 minutes and be like, what questions are you asking? And some of their questions are like, oh yeah, people are still asking this question. Like, yeah, I wrote a blog post that answered that question 2 years ago, but this person doesn't know that. You don't want to get too advanced for your own audience. And I think that's really important anytime you're teaching something. So if whether you're selling pools, right? So the number one question is, above ground pool or in ground pool, right? That's your business. You're probably super tired of that question. But you know what? Every new person who's considering a pool, they've never heard the answer. And so for them, it's fresh and new. And you have to constantly be going back to that well of beginners. Otherwise, you'll find that your market slowly gets smaller and smaller as people have to get educated just to understand what you're talking about.
It's very true. That's another example I saw of that was with my friend Todd with the Go On Life podcast. With episode 40, 50, before he had been asking people, okay, tell me, when you quit your job, what were your thoughts? What did you do right after? What did you do the first 12 months? And he started getting like these people, and it was 30, 40 interviews. And then he kind of switched over to, okay, tell me how you've done that. Great, wonderful. Now tell me about how you run your business today, 2, 3, 4 years later. And one of his friends texted him saying, hey, get back on track. You're getting too advanced. Most people listen to your latest episode, and they necessarily do not care about the things that you are really interested in right now. So go back to what your customer came in for.
That's right. Cut those episodes in half and start a second podcast that's the second half of the interview, because that's a totally different demographic. And going back to Trump,
I love it when people start a conversation with that sentence.
Yeah, so another reason why he's been so successful is that he knows who his target audience is. He's talking to a group of people that aren't used to being talked to. So the media typically is talking to city dwellers. You live in a city, I live in a city. But only about 60% of the population lives in a city. The people who live in suburbs or in the rural areas are totally ignored. And they are so desperate for someone to acknowledge their existence and to talk specifically to them that they will put up with anything as long as suddenly they're acknowledged. And in any market, there are people that are like that. There are people who are like, oh my goodness, please make something for me that's not just a generic product. You craft your product, you craft your message for me specifically, and now I love you. And so finding those niches that are unfulfilled and untapped can be a source of really powerful revenue.
I've learned so much today. I'm not kidding. This is not just being like, hey, this was nice. Thanks for teaching me something. No, that was great. Gave me a lot to think about. Thomas?
If you edit out only the things of me saying something nice about Trump, I will be very, very sad.
You didn't say any bad things about him.
I think that he's wrong on pretty much all the issues. And he's an obnoxious jerk. But I will say this, he's a consistent obnoxious jerk, which is good branding.
Very true, very true. Thomas, how can people find you on the socials?
So the most interesting thing that I have probably to your listeners is my podcast. It's the Novel Marketing Podcast. If you've ever thought about writing a book, we will talk about how to take your book and become successful with it and how to spread the word. And then my website, authormedia.com, which is resources for authors who want to get rich and famous. We're here to help you get richer and famouser.
Richer and famous. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.